Hello there, my name is Michael Maynard and welcome back to Gorilla Picking. Now, today what we are going to do is finish off part 3 of a series on this beautiful old Chubb safe head that I started back in August, believe it or not. So parts 1 and 2 were back in August, and if you want to go and have a look back, the most recent one was video number 153. I'll put a link to that down below. So what's happened in the meantime is that, well, first of all, I got busy with a whole lot of other stuff, but second of all, manipulating this thing open turned out to be far harder and far more time consuming than I ever thought that it was going to be. And this thing beat me, so I had to take the back off it and have a look inside and figure out a couple of things. I'll tell you what I did in a minute, but what I'd like to do first is make clear that I have absolutely not manipulated this thing from scratch. I did have a look inside to see where I was going. So what did I actually do? Well, I was having a great deal of problems figuring out how to get to the right contact point. The left one I couldn't feel at all, just not a hope. The right contact point I was having a bit of trouble with. So what I did first of all, I opened this thing up and had a look at the nose meeting the right contact point and figured out exactly just how to feel that. So I would never have got that right. I would have never done well with that if I hadn't pulled this thing apart and been able to see when the thing touched and also see what it felt like with my fingers. So that was the first thing I did. Second thing I did, I was reasonably sure I had the gate on wheel 3 correct, but I figured that if I didn't have it right, then doing the rest of the process was just going to be a waste of time. So again, once I had what I thought was a reasonable graph of wheel 3, I pulled the back off this thing, had a look and checked that I did actually have that right, and it turned out that I did. And that made the subsequent graphing much easier. So I didn't look at wheels 1 and 2, so I didn't know what the numbers for the wheels 1 and 2 were, but I did check on wheel number 3, and lo and behold, I had that right to half a digit actually, which is something that I'll tell you guys in about more in a minute. Okay, so what's the combination of this thing? Well, the combination of this thing turned out to be 201185, and my guess is that that's actually a date. I think probably somebody has set this combination to a date that was important to them, but it works. It opens on 201185. When I was manipulating it, I actually got the gate on wheel 3 as 84.5, and I got the gate on wheel 2 as 10.5. And the gates on this thing are really narrow. If you are one digit off, you will not get it. So this will not open on 201184, for example, or 201186. There's just no way. So it turns out that you have to dial this to a precision of within one number, which I thought was very interesting and much harder than the Sargent and Greenleaf locks that I'd been working on previously. Another thing that I found was really interesting, if you guys have had a look back at that video 153, you will remember that I had a little paper aid to manipulation stuck on here. I had a little vernier scale stuck on here. That turned out to be a complete waste of time for this lock. I just could not get that thing to work. So what I ended up doing, I manipulated this thing to tenths, so I was recording the contact point to within tenths of a unit, and the way that I ended up doing that was very simple. I just had, and in fact I might zoom in on that a little bit. You can see that I've got a number 5 written there. So this was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I just simply manipulated to tenths either side of the 5. So if it was round about there, that would have been 5.5. If it was round about here somewhere, that would have been 4.6 or whatever it was. Did that with magnification only, did not use a vernier scale at all. and that in the end was good enough. The indications that I got out of this thing were about 0.4 or 0.5, so no, maybe less than that, maybe 3.3 or 0.4 of a number, big enough to see with a bit of magnification. A little bit slower that way, okay, so you had to be a little bit precise, but we got there in the end. What else did I learn? Well, I learnt that I had to be a lot more precise and a lot more picky dialing this than a Sargent and Greenleaf lock. So with a Sargent and Greenleaf, not only is the contact point very, very obvious, the right contact point is very obvious on a 6700 series lock. This really, really isn't. So I had to kind of tiptoe around that, if you like, and I'll take the back off in a minute and show you why. The reason is that the spring on the arm on this is just incredibly soft compared with the Sargent and Greenleaf lock. You'll see that in 2 seconds time. The other thing that I found that was really, really interesting was that finding the contact point when I was dialing all 3 wheels was actually quite hard. Now the reason for that is that when you're dialing all 3 wheels here, there is actually quite a lot of friction. There's quite a lot of resistance here, and it made finding the contact point really quite tricky. Now once you got to the stage where you were working on wheels 1 and 2, and 3 was taken round to its number, in this case 84.5 every time, the contact point got an awful lot more easy to figure out, and I think that was 2 reasons actually. I think there was a little bit less resistance on the dial, and I also think that at that point the nose was going just a little bit further into the gate and therefore coming to a slightly harder stop. But I was really, really pleased when I was doing the second graph that the contact point was much easier to get figured out. Righto, there we go folks, the inside of what I think actually, and if somebody knows the nomenclature on these better than I do, but you know, can you please tell me? But I think that this is a Chubb 7L05 lock, 7L05. So anyway, I think that that's what this is, and I can tell you a couple of really interesting things about it. You heard me talking about the spring on the arm being a lot weaker than a Sargent and Greenleaf lock. It really, really, really is. So this little wee tiny extension spring here, that is all the spring force that this thing gets, and you can see that I'm putting virtually no pressure on that at all, and it moves. So you don't have that big amount of pressure that the spring with an S&G gives you, dropping the thing into the gate. The other thing that you'll notice here is that there's not really much resistance there at all, and I think that they have deliberately shaped the nose for that. I think that that's a deliberate policy, so to make a less acute angle as it touches the edges of the gate. The right contact, well, let's do the left one first. The left one, when I'm dialing it, I just cannot feel that. I really cannot feel that. The right one, on the other hand, what I found was that by looking at this thing, by having a look at the inside and seeing the view that you guys have got right now, I could, with some practice, feel that point there where it contacts, and if I overshot, it would definitely push the cam back down off the nose of the arm there. So with a bit of practice, I got to the point where I could get those contact readings actually pretty good, and again to within, I reckon, a tenth. So having shown you that, what I might do is dial the combination in and then show you guys the thing opening. So if I just back out of there for a second, and I'm dialing round to the left now to 20. We're smack on 20 there. Now we're going back the other way, 11 once, 11 twice, 11 the third time, that's it there, and then right to 85 once, the cam moving by itself at the moment. Now we've got wheel 3 moving. This is the one that I checked to make sure I had it right. And then if I dial back now, we'll zoom in for this bit. Okay, if I now dial back round to the right, you'll see the nose drop in, and at that point, if I had I'll tell you what, let's just actuate the little doofer. There we go. Okay, and we've got the lock open. So, fascinating wee beast. Now, for you guys who are interested in the graphs, what I'll do next is show you those graphs. So, back in a second. Okay folks, well we're back, and this is the graph of the first iteration, so all wheels left. You can see here we had all wheels left right there, and the numbers that we got look like this, and I've got to say I was actually a bit relieved to get this indication right at the end. I'd gone right the way through here thinking that I was going to get no decent size indication at all. So all the numbers were hovering around 5 or thereabouts, and then I got down to 84, I think it was, just yeah, on 84, and it dropped down to 4.3, and I thought, okay, great, it's about half a number, I'll take that. Amplified that, and found that I actually couldn't separate 84 and 85 in the end, so I figured that the gate, I decided it was going to be halfway between there, so I called that 84 and a half. You'll see I've called it that down there. Figuring out which wheel that was on, I did not do a formal high-low test there, couldn't be bothered. I just did the trick of kicking wheel 3 out of the way and seeing what happened, and I haven't even written it down here. Lo and behold, I lost that notch as soon as I did that, so I figured that was probably my answer. So that was the first graph, and that, I have to say, I did this probably half a dozen times. So I have done a whole lot of all wheels left graphs, and they slowly got better and better, and I got to the point where this thing here was, I thought, pretty obvious, but it was at that point that I took the back off to make sure that I was on the right track, and I was. So that's the first attempt. Now with the second graph, I made the assumption that wheel 2 was going to indicate next, so I figured it was hopefully going to go 3, 2, 1, and in the event it did. The graph was much more up and down on this one, so just to explain this graph here, guys, because I couldn't feel the left contact point at all, I just gave it a nominal value. So I just gave it a nominal value of 4 right the way down, recorded my right contact points down here. This graph is the difference between the two, and not by far the biggest indication, but the best indication was here at 10. When I amplified that, but the rest of this thing was pretty up and down, I've got to say. Anyway, so that was the best indication I had. When I amplified that, that's these numbers down here. Again, 10 and 11, I couldn't separate them. I got the same contact point for both of those. So I decided that I was going to call that 10 and a half. Again, didn't do a formal high-low. I just kicked wheels 1 and 2 out of the way. I suppose I kind of did a high graph, if you like, and was very pleased to see that it was pretty obviously wheel 2, just like that, really. Right, back to the lock. and then wheel 3, wheel 1, I'm sorry, I obviously just dialed it one by one. So I brute forced wheel 1, and I had to go one number at a time. By the time I'd had a look inside there and figured out where wheel 3 was going, I discovered that I did not have a big tolerance, so dialing every second number was obviously not going to work, and I dialed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just straight up like that, and was pretty pleased that it opened on 20, so I didn't have to go right around the dial to a number right at the end. So there we go, folks. That video won't have made a whole lot of sense to a lot of folks who don't know how to manipulate a lock like this, and for you guys I apologise, but for you guys who do know how to manipulate a lock, that is how this one opened. I was very pleased to see the thing open. The next one I'm going to do on safe locks, I'm actually going to go back to my original series that I was doing about 12 months ago now on the basics of manipulation. So you guys who haven't done a lot of manipulation, you'll get something out of the next one. So thanks for watching that, folks. I really appreciate you sticking with me. Leave your comments below on this. My name's Michael Maynard, and this is Gorilla Picking.